Hey guys, CloneGuy here, and today I'm going to be counting down the worst tanks for new players in World of Tanks. We've got 7 of them for you guys, plus 2 honorable mentions, so actually 9. And the point of this video is to kind of go over tanks that have different playstyles, harder playstyles, or teach bad habits. And so these are tanks I do not recommend to new players, specifically their tank lines. And the first on the list is going to be the Grill 15, the Waffenpanzer IV, the Borsig. You know, that line right there is not new player friendly. It's an easier grind, but it will not teach you how to play the game very well. You're going to be playing in tanks which have no armor, which have good camouflage, and phenomenal guns. That sounds great, doesn't it? Well, except for the no armor part. You're slow, you're sluggish. You won't really help your team out unless you truly know how to play the game. If you don't know how to play the game, you're not going to be doing much whatsoever. And the big thing people don't do in these tanks, especially when you're new, is relocate. And in fact, there's one player in particular I can think of who has 30,000 games in these things, and all he does is camp in the back. 30,000, actually 38,000 games in the Waffenpanzer IV, which is what you're seeing in the background, and he camps in the back. And that's just, that's what people do with this tank. And if this is what you start playing, that's what's going to teach you how to play. You're going to learn, okay, if I camp in the back, I'll do damage. I can't go to the front. And it's just going to teach you horrible, horrible habits. And plus the grind is really hard. I love the grind, but it's not a great grind for newer players. You've got the Toaster at tier 5. Then you have the Nashorn. Then you have the Panzer SFL. Or the Stuer Mills, should I say. Then you have the Rheinmetall Borsig. Then you have the Waffenträgerpanzer IV, which is what I'm playing. And then you have the Grill 15, or the Waffle 100. All of which are very difficult for players who don't quite have a grasp on the game. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are on this tank, on this line. Do you think it's new player friendly? If so, let us know. This next one is a very tempting line, I feel, specifically because it's Russian and it's a medium tank line. But this line is difficult to play, the entire line, starting at tier 7. Tier 6 and down are pretty good, but starting at tier 7, you got the AA-44. You got a big gun, rear-mounted turret, no gun depression. Your gun is derpy, it doesn't shoot straight, and your DPM lacks. It's tough to play. Then you have tier 8, and while it's rear-mounted, suddenly it plays completely different. You've got a really nice gun, but you don't have armor. You don't have gun depression still. Your turret doesn't turn all the way around. But you have incredible camo values. Again, camouflage is something that will require a lot of knowledge in the game to really utilize. People still don't use the 416 well, and they have thousands and thousands of games. It's one of my favorite, one of the best tanks at tier 8 in my humblest of opinions, but people do not play it right. Then you have what you see in the background, the 430 version 2, another tank which is just, it's difficult, no gun depression, doesn't turn all the way around, and suddenly you don't have that camouflage you had before. And your gun almost seems a little bit more derpy. It's like, what's going on? But now you have armor. And that's about it. Then you have, at tier 10, you have 3 tanks to choose from. The Object 430, Object 430U, should I say, which has kind of lost its spark. There's not really a reason to play that right now. Then you have the Object 430. Again, it kind of lost its spark. The T62A is just better. And you have the K91, which plays the most like the rest of this line. But now you really don't have armor. And you lose your camouflage that you had at tier 8, again, like I was talking about. And it's just kind of an inferior vehicle than the tier 9. And again, it's a learning curve. This whole line is a learning curve. And so I would recommend rather you play, let's say, oh, what's that? I don't know. I would rather you play things like the other Russian mediums, the 62A, the 140, the T54, the T44, the T43, the T3485, the T34. Oh my gosh, that entire line is phenomenal. Yes, the T44 maybe was the harder of that line, especially when stock, but once that thing gets upgraded, it's pretty good, and it plays exactly like the T54 does, which plays exactly like the T62A does, or the Object 140. Holy cow, there's T's and objects, there's so many things. But this line, while it does good for me in this game, it's hard, very difficult. And if you're a newer player, I would recommend you stick to something with a center or front-mounted turret, and not necessarily these rear-mounted learning curve tanks. But again, let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this tank or this line. Is it noob-friendly? I'll let you guys decide. I am showing rather exciting gameplay in the background with all of these. And next on the list is the AMX-50B. And again, you're going to see exciting gameplay, but that does not mean this tank is easy to play. It just means I know how to play him. I think, maybe, but probably not. And I'm showing you half-decent gameplay. These tanks are difficult, and this line is notorious. Starting at, well, this is a whole line. You start at tier 1, go to tier 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to tier 10. But let's start at tier 5. You have the BDR, which is a tier 5 heavy tank, which I think is a phenomenal heavy tank. It's got a 90mm. It packs a punch at that tier. And then you have the tier 6, the ARL. Again, another tank which just packs a punch. 300 alpha. If you use premium rounds, 330 alpha damage. You've got armor to boot. It's a good tank. It's a good gun. I like it. But then that's where it stops. Then you have the tier 7, which is just inferior, the AMX 45, M4 45. It has no armor. It has the same guns. It's the same gun choices you had at tier 6. And it's big. It's big, no armor. Easy to pen, easy to kill. Not very great. But fine, it's just tier 7. A lot of tier 7s are not very good. Then you get to tier 8. And now you have medium tanks. You have the AMX, which used to be heavy. AMX 50-100. 6-shot autoloader. 300 alpha per shot. That's 1800 potential in its magazine. Sounds great, but you are big, and so often I see players YOLO in, get their one magazine off, and die. And yeah, that one magazine may clip someone and kill someone, but you're not learning how to play the game. It's not teaching you anything. You got to know the game. You got to know that you're a supporting tank, like what we're playing here. We fell back in this game, and now we're going to let our Waffenträger, who has health, take the hits. He's loaded. He's ready to go. He's going to take the hits. And that's good for us, because if we just took those 2 hits that he just took, we'd likely be dead. But alas, we're still alive, and we're able to now clip out this E100, or at least assist in the clipping of this E100 as we move on. Do you think this line is user-friendly? Well, or should I say, new player-friendly? Let me know in the comments below. We have our first light tank line on this list, the WZ1321 line, the Chinese light tanks. And while they have their place in the game, they are no good for new players. Not in the slightest. These I would classify as light tank killers, light tank hunters. You don't get a good gun really until tier 10, and even then the gun's not that great. It's 390 alpha damage, which you already have on things like the Sheridan, or the AMX 13105, or the Manticore. I'm not sure what's going on with my capture card, but you know what? Who cares? You do have high alpha at tier 9. You have 320 alpha damage, but you have AP shells. All the other tanks, all the other tiers, not tiers, but all the other tanks at tier 9, all the light tanks, they all have APCR at this point. They all have fast firing, fast flying, fast travel time shells. This thing does not. It's derpy, and it's not very accurate. And the line really has nothing special. It's the heaviest of the light tanks, the tier 10 specifically, and you can ram other light tanks. You're kind of like a bulldozer. But again, that's going to lead to players kind of YOLOing and getting themselves killed. This is not a YOLO scout. This is kind of a brawling scout. You are going to be outspotted by the other light tanks. You're going to be outmaneuvered by the other light tanks. You may even be out firepowered by the other light tanks. But what you can do is this. And it's especially better in the tier 10. However, again, that's a learning curve. You got to learn how to scout first. Learn how to medium tank first. Learn when the right time to strike is. Then you can go around and do things like that. This tank, I do not recommend for newer players. But what's your guys' take? Guys's? What's your guys? Let me know in the comments below. The TVP T50/51. This line is absolutely terrible. I just recently received a flamethrower on the tier 8 because of how bad it was. And does that make up for it? Not really, but it gives it something special. But at tier 7, you have the T-34-100. The T-34, by the way, is the Russian tier 5. So you just have the tier 5. But hey, guess what? They put a 100mm gun on it. Virtually the old T-44 gun. So does it make it good? No, not really. TVP VTU, tier 8, not that great. We had a great game on it recently, but it's not that great. Then you get to tier 9. Finally, you get a good tank. You get a good autoloader. But again, it's a learning curve. you have to be patient with your shots. You have to be patient with what you do in it. You're big, you're boxy, you have no armor, you're easy to penetrate, easy to hit. You're fast-ish. You go 60, and while that used to be fast, it's by no means quick. It's by no means impressive anymore. So you may find yourself getting places quickly and then not being able to leave. Yeah, that's no good. Plus, you're big and an easy target, which you've mentioned before, so you can't really retreat. You kind of suffer from the same issues that you had when you were playing the French heavy/medium tank line, the AMX-50B, the AMX-5120, and the AMX-5100. It's the same kind of play style, same kind of supporting role. The difference is this tank can get the shots off quicker, like we just did there, so you're not out and exposed as much. However, it's still incredibly difficult to play, and I see good players sometimes struggle in this, but oftentimes I see good players have absolutely smoking games in this thing. But I hardly see new players, average players, bad players have any kind of impact in this tank. It's difficult to play. I mean, they added the machine in the game, which is just a better version of this. It goes faster. It has armor on the front. You have gun depression. It was literally just a slap in the face. Even Wargaming realized that this tank is hard. Thus, they released an easier one. We've got 2 left. Well, plus 2 honorable mentions. And this isn't so much the medium tank line I'm talking about for the Italians. I'm talking about the Italians in general for this one. You've got the auto reloading mechanic. And that's a completely new ball game. It's no good for new players. Think about it. If you just jumped into this game and you got your auto reloaders, then that's all you know. You're not going to be... It's not going to be good for you to jump into other tanks now, because those are going to be difficult. Those are going to be the learning curve. But you've started with something that's already more difficult to play. You don't have much DPM in these tanks. You don't have much armor, specifically in the medium tanks. And you have this fascinating gun. Yes, it's always loading. You never have to worry like you would an autoloader to, like, do I need to cycle a shot here? Should I not shoot this one at this guy? Because if I shoot, now I only have 3 shots left or 2 shots left, and I'm sitting there in an awkward situation where maybe I have to go for the 20 seconds to reload. No, you don't have to worry about that. You shoot your shot, you wait 7 to 10 seconds, and boom, you've got another shot loaded and ready to go. No problem whatsoever. Like, look, we've got 2 shots. We could just go boom, boom right now, or we wait the 7 seconds and done. We have the next shell loaded and ready to go. Seems like a good mechanic, and it is, but it's a difficult mechanic to use because you will still be out DPM'd by other medium tanks. So again, you are a supporting vehicle. You are much like the TVP and the AMX-50 line, which we were talking about earlier, where you are very, very supportive. You don't fight people from the front by yourself. You're not necessarily a frontline tank unless you have other tanks with you. You don't really have great camouflage. Your speed, you go 55. Yes, but that's about it. And oftentimes you shouldn't be unloading your entire magazine. Here I do because I realize it's fine. We don't really have anything else to shoot at right now. We want to move up in spot, so I decide to dump my magazine. These are things that you have to be thinking of. Typically, I'm only firing 2 shots at a time in this tank because I don't want to shoot off the last shell because it takes 10 seconds to load that first shell. And that's kind of an awkward place to be. Meanwhile, it's 7.8 seconds for the second shell, and for the last shell, that first shell you fire 7.2. As you can see, you're not really losing much DPM firing those first 2 shells, but when you fire that third, that's when you have a problem. And here, we're just going to fire 1, 2, and again, I've decided to fire all 3. It doesn't really matter, because all that's left is Barosk. Maybe we could have gotten one more into him, but I thought we could finish off the Jagdpanther, but he goes down. Now, I'm going to show you guys what I thought to be one of the best use of the auto reloader I've ever performed myself in this game. We ran out of AP shells, so we had to reload. This guy fires 1 into us, but now we've got 2. We're going to shoot 2 into him. 1 and 2. That's fine. We're going to fix, and we're going to duck into cover because he's also got an auto reloader, and so we don't really want him killing us now. And while we're ducking into cover, look, we get to reload. There's 1, and we're going to wait for the next one here. 2 more seconds. There's 2, and we're going to put them both in because maybe we can kill him. No, we cannot. But it doesn't matter. 8 more seconds. We'll have the last shot, and hopefully we'll be able to finish him off. And this is what the auto reloader can do. An auto loader would not have been able to do this. A single shot would have just sat there going pop, 7 seconds, pop, 7 seconds, pop. But the auto reloader, we had to use our brain We had to understand the core mechanics, and that allowed us to pick up the kill there and pick up maximum amount of damage. New players, beware. Honorable mentions, we have the Japanese heavy tank line. While this tank I think is incredibly easy to play, and new players are going to play phenomenally in these tanks because you have derp guns, you have armor that doesn't require using your brain, you have hit points, which means you're going to be helping your team win a whole lot just by YOLOing, just by putting yourself in front of the enemy because they shoot you and they lose DPM shooting you rather than using that DPM on your team. So, you know, big, juicy, high hit point armored heavy tanks are always going to help the team win. However, the reason I don't recommend this is not because new players are going to struggle with it. It's because it's going to teach bad habits. You are playing with a derp gun. You don't have to learn weak spots. You just fire at the general direction of the enemy and you splash. Sometimes you pen, but you're always doing damage. You don't need to really learn how to angle your armor because you're a boxy tank. You just point your armor toward the front and hope they bounce off of you. And you have a lot of hit points, so even if they do pen you, you can survive a bit longer. And while those are all good things, they don't teach you how to play the game. New players are going to play this, and they're going to struggle with anything else because they haven't learned. Your best bet in learning the game is to grind yourself a KV1, go up the IS-4 line. That line will teach you how to angle, it'll teach you how to side scrape, it'll teach you how to go hull down, it'll teach you about your gun, and so on and so forth. This tank, this line, not so much. It's the entire line, actually, starting at tier 5. They're all like this. Oh, tier 5 is a little different, but it's kind of not. But especially starting at tier 6, they all play exactly the same. And while, again, that's good for new players, that's good for, consistency is great and all, you're going to develop bad habits. And so I don't recommend these. If you're going to start with some heavies, these are the 3 I suggest, /4. The IS-7 or the IS-4 are fantastic. The Super Conqueror and the T110E5. Maybe even the E100. Those 5 are pretty good for new players. Those ones will teach you how to angle, teach you how to move, teach you how to shoot. So go get those instead. Our second and final honorable mention is not because this line is bad for new players. It's because it's a slow line, very slow line. This tank goes 23 to 24 on flat. Then you have the tier before it, which only goes 20, the T95. And then the T28, I believe, only goes 23 as well. Or 24. I think it's 23 now. And believe it or not, the T28 used to go 18 kilometers an hour. And the T95 used to only go 13. But those have since been buffed. Okay, CloneGuy. So why is that an issue? Because if you're a new player and you're just getting into this game, you're looking for some fun. You're looking for some action. And if you're sitting there playing these slow tanks, you're going to get incredibly bored. And you're going to quit and leave the game. I know I would have. Thankfully, see, when I started this game, I ground out the Death Star, the FE215B 183, very slow line as well, and it was very boring, and I did quit the game a bit. But a friend of mine let me use his account, play the Death Star, and I'm like, I need to get this tank. And so that's what made me, stay. Otherwise, I would have left, and those tanks are faster than this line. And so just be careful if you're a new player and you're going to go for this line, that it's a boring line because it's slow. It could be exciting. Sure, like especially this game, we're going to pull off 7 grand as the tanks just stack up in front of us, but you're slow. You're slow getting here. You're slow shooting. You're slow moving. The game develops and now it's like, oh, boring. So just keep that in mind, that this is a painfully slow grind. And so if you're going to go for it, just be wary. Finally, the most unfriendly tank line for new players has to be the Swedish tank destroyers, the Stridsvagn 103B line. It's a campy tank-ish. You have to know when to push up, when to use, your armor-ish if you have it. And let's be honest. If you're a new player, you don't understand how the overmatch mechanics work. If you're a new player, you don't have all the armor plates on your tank memorized. You don't have all the gun calibers memorized that the enemy have and who's shooting at you. And so you won't know who can and can't penetrate you. You won't know if you should move up, and you're going to find yourself camping in the back like I am here. But guess what? It's okay to camp in the back with this tank, but not for long. You're running the same issue that you ran into in the German tank destroyer line. And that's not recognizing when to move up, when to relocate, when your position is compromised, so on and so forth. It's the same struggle that artillery run into when they're just in top-down view. But the difference is, in this tank, you're not in top-down view. You get to see the battlefield. You get to see people advancing. You know these things. And look at right here. I was able to shoot at the guy, and I knew I wouldn't be spotted because I recognize his view range. It's 360. And unless he's got optics going and he's got vents going, which you can't take vents, but unless he's got optics and he's got food and he's got all the other perks that boost your view range, he's not going to see me. And I knew that, and I was able to shoot. Would you know that as a new player? Probably not. And that's just the icing on the cake. Then you have the siege mechanic. That is probably the most difficult mechanic, most difficult play style to understand in the game is the siege mechanic. This tank literally has 3, if not 4, elements to it that make it very difficult for new players. 1, understanding camouflage. 2, understanding your armor and how overmatching works. 3, understanding the guns that are shooting at you. And 4, understanding the siege mechanic. You have 4 elements that are holding you back if you're a new player, which you have to learn. You have to understand. Otherwise, you're going to be no help to your team. You're just going to sit in the back, and some games you're going to pick the right spot and people are going to line up in front of you. Other games you're not going to have anyone sitting in front of you whatsoever, and you're going to do nothing. Or the entire enemy team is just going to come after you, and you're going to die. That happens in this tank. That happens when you're camping. That happens when you don't understand that it's time to move up. Like, in this game, we knew it was time to move up. We went after the Super Conqueror, we went after the Waffenträger, and we were able to execute this Waffenträger without much of a problem because we understood. And that, my friends, is a wrap. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you did, slap that like button. Leave in the comments below what you thought about this list. Do you agree with it? Don't you agree with it? Would you rather have this tank on there? Would you rather remove that tank? You know, so on and so forth. And make sure you subscribe if you're not already. 40% of you who watch are not subscribed. Come on, hit that subscribe button. Hit that bell. We're posting videos again. And we are taking Wargaming and World of Tanks by storm. Hoorah! Anyway, see you guys all later. Take care. And peace out.